So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today to share a haircut with you, and not just any haircut. One of my personal favourites as a cutting purist, one of my favourite haircuts is the Firefly by the amazing Christopher Brooker. So what I'm doing for you today is not a step-by-step Firefly, because that's been done. It's been done by a far better hairdresser than me already. So I want to show you really like how it inspires my work, and how people who have set great haircuts, if you like, in the past, have inspired my progression as a hair cutter. So firstly, my mannequin head I'm using today, this is an Exalto professional mannequin head. I've just toned it with a purple shampoo from Moroccan Oil. So there's no colour involved. It's just literally a purple shampoo. Hey guys, lots of love. Herbert, some great people. Javier, fantastic. So we're going to be working with our hair put into essentially 4 zones, okay? We have our hair in a side parting. So essentially we have a distribution which you're working further across the hair to another. So this will affect certain choices of length later in the haircut. So we have split the front into 2 zones, as we've said, off center. Our profile section working down the right hand side of the face, coming back into the crown, then allows us to have our back zone into 2 zones again. We're talking about left and right for the moment. Personally, I prefer to isolate the top as I work through this haircut. The classic version, Christopher worked all the way up to the parting. I think especially for a live, I prefer just to sort of keep myself in a bit of a safety zone with that, and just make sure I can come to the top at the end once I've got my balance on both sides. So, wow, this is it, exciting, got a lot of people here, I'm ready for this. So we've got the hair prepped with a leave-in conditioning product and heat protection product, pretty simple. We've also got the hair just split into a zone working directly down as a radial section. This is to isolate in front and behind the ear, due to the fact that the distribution of the hairline is clearly different. So we have to take a different stance on our cutting section. The first thing we're going to do today is to start at the actual front, at the side. Let me just move my mannequin a bit closer for you all. Okay, so we're going to take a very, very slight diagonal back section here. Very, very slight. Just going to keep all the hair nice and groomed. How's everyone's day going? I hope everyone's having a great time. I've been really excited for this. So thank you again to Hairbrained. So, my first section is at the side, very, very slightly diagonal back. My second zone is going to have a section running parallel to the hairline. So you can see a theme here straight away. I'm working parallel to the hairline on both sides. I'm not concerned about setting my external shape at the moment. I'm going to work more so to build my internal shape, my graduation, and I'm going to set the external shape on the suitability of how the graduation is. Okay, so that is one reason why we don't do the length first, is then the length is determining how the characteristics of the graduation, where we want to determine the outline from the characteristics of what we've already cut. Okay, time here, it's 7 p.m. It's haircut time, that's what time it is. So I'm going to bring my section down and start to take my first section, but I'm going to be over-directing the section very, very slightly forward. Why is that? Because if I over-direct it slightly forward, it's immediately enhancing a slight curve. So when we do our firefly shape to get our beautiful soft wedge line, by pulling the haircut slightly forward, we're alleviating the obvious weight we're going to get if we just create a flat line. A flat line will keep length building towards the front. So a line that is going to follow the head shape is going to be more conducive towards a curved line. Okay. So I'm just over-directing the hair slightly forward. So I take this line, it's all the way behind the ear. I'm not putting too much tension on, especially around the ear. I'm also having my line travel towards the occipital bone. That's kind of where my fingers are pointing. Okay, so then we're going to take our next section. And this is going to be short to long distribution. So it's going to be shorter at the base, longer towards the top. Okay, so we're off. Now we're going to get section 2. Okay, so section 2 is going to be a slightly curved section, which means it's going to be coming up to the front hairline as well. Okay, so the reason I want to do this is to ensure that I get control over the lengths at the hairline right at the front immediately and not risk them being too short at the end. So if I was working up the whole way and then I came to the top here and thought that looks a bit short, I've got no way of solving it. But if I'm bringing the front in immediately, I'm in a much better place. So we're bringing this down to the previous section. So elevation is the key control to this. That's moving the hair up and down. Over directing slightly forward. Again, not too much tension. Over directing slightly forward. And that will help us to create our curved line. Take section 3. Okay, so now I'm just going to remove section 1. I'm going to bring section 2 down onto section 3. Like so. Very, very slightly over directing forward each time, just again to give me that curved line. So you see all my sections are still staying slightly diagonal back, which is great. Just removing the previous sections, just so I've got a little bit more control of where the guide's going to go. So the elevation is going to help you to determine how much weight is going to be in the haircut or how flat the shape's going to be. So I don't want there to be too much weight, obviously. I do want there to be a wedge shape here, but not to the point where we've got to texturize. Okay. Bring down my last section. Again, I'm working down to the previous section each time. This has given me a gradual increase of length opposed to a rapid one. Hey guys, sorry I've not been able to really watch much of your comments coming through. There's your cross check. Okay. So there's my cross check, nice and neat, ready for action. So now we're going to start right into the back, guys. So we've already got our guideline for the back. So we're going to keep taking our diagonal back sections. Let's keep the hair out of the way. I'm going to slightly groom the front out of the way. Oh, hey Fiona, how's it going? Just saw your name pop up there. So again, if I start to lift this too high, I'm going to start to affect how much weight is being built into my haircut. And I've already set that into the side. So we need to follow the same rule or the same guides that we've set in the side. Shorter to longer. So then again, we remove the previous. And we keep working through. Now at the very back here, I like my sections to meet in the middle. So I've got sections 2 and 3, I like them to meet in the middle of one another, not over directing or elevating it lower, because that will increase the length too much. And by increasing the length, we're going to start to get a bulbous shape at the back. Factors, initial choice of look. Thanks, Elaine. The initial factors would be the hair density. That's the amount of hair that is naturally in one area to the other, because obviously the more density I might need to build up less weight. I suppose as well, I'd look at the features of the client, the cheekbones, the eyes, all those features. What are we trying to emphasize? What are we trying to bring out? As well, I think, of course, we would look at the ears, because not everyone's ears are the same. So it would depend. I've got massive ears, so you probably need to keep my hair longer. So working through getting a really nice shape through here. We're crossing over into the other side. One of the reasons we do that is we'll cross over one way, then we cross over the other, and this gives us a perfect symmetry of working round the head shape. So yeah, it's really nice. Again, here we go. The elevation is a funny thing. People say, how do you know how low to go? How do you know how high to go? I would say, look for the strength in your guide. So when you're cutting, you probably will come to a point where you find loads of guidelines. I would say, pull the section and look for where the guide's at its strongest. And then, of course, go through and keep cross-checking your work over. Keep cross-checking your work. And if you're cross-checking like this, you're fine just to dust the ends, but you can't cross-cut, it's cross-checking, obviously. I was very lucky that I did a version of the Firefly for my online education, and it was amazing that Christopher Brooker actually saw the haircut and saw part of the video, and he messaged me and gave me some advice. I mean, how amazing is that, to get a message from the guy who actually invented the haircut? He actually developed it, and then he drops me a message on Facebook and basically helps me, gives me some guidance. You know, wow, that's one of the great things about social media. You know, you get these opportunities to connect with somebody like that. So I'm on my final section on this side. Just making sure I'm not taking too deep of a guide. Right, then we can go through and cross-check our work once again. Then we're going to move on to the other side. I say I'm trying to keep an eye on your questions. Make sure that we, obviously, at the same time, I want to make sure we're getting the cut down. Make sure we do a great job for you. Cool, wicked, great, fabulous. So what we've got so far, very, very quickly, we've got this really nice curved shape. It's going to give us this lovely soft weight line. Okay. Oh, you over direct into the previous section. Yeah, so I suppose when you think about over direction, it's probably more elevation because the section shape. Because the section is travelling diagonal back and it's quite low to the horizontal, it's probably more so the movement of your hands going up and down than side to side. So side to side is over direction, up and down is over direction, is elevation. So I would say like the key attribute to building the length is probably going to be the elevation. Okay, so I'm just going to clip that back out the way. Oh, bless you, Fiona. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what the Firefly is, it's essentially a very classic haircut developed, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1970s by one of the original Sassoon stylists, Mr. Christopher Brooker. And this type of haircut, in my opinion, if you're going to be a cutter, is an essential to have in your repertoire. It can be used in so many different applications. So I always think that, you know, there's certain haircuts you need to have in your repertoire. So I'm just going to measure a point from this side. I'm just going to measure the same point on that side so I can basically connect them in. Now I also need to measure behind the ear because remember there was a slight angle there. So to know the exact angle I went at, I'm just going to measure behind the ear as well. Oh, it's my pleasure, Elaine. Ask away. So remember, if you're going to measure, don't just measure in front of the ear. You want to measure behind the ear as well. And then just by working with those 2 points that I've just cut, I'm able to start to connect those together. And that's my start of the other side. Now remember, I went into the back straight away. I always prefer just to flow it in, and then obviously I continue doing this side before I do the back, which is quite strange. A lot of people probably would work through, but it does make more sense to establish your external shape at the front and then work back. But again, these are preferences. So, yes, I am pulling it forward slightly actually. I am, Nicola, that is the thing I'm doing. It's slightly forward. I never used to do that. But when you put it slightly forward, it helps to give that roundness to the hair. When you come here for the first time, I always just angle it towards the occipital bone. That's kind of where I know. So, we pull the hair out. So it's actually creating like a curved outline. Now, the same as we did before, just gonna swipe off the comments. When we did it before, we did a slight curved section, okay? So essentially the curved section is helping me to cut the front in at the same time as I'm doing the back. This means that my shape is building, if you like, with a much better flow to the head shape, a much better flow to the external and internal connected, okay? So I'm just going to lift my previous section up, connect in. Connect in. Then I'm going to bring a small amount at the front, not all at once, because it's on the side parting, this is travelling further across. So I'm going to work with slightly less hair at the moment. Coming across into here. Bring some more. And again, this is really helping, like we said before, the roundness of the shape. Then I'm going to bring this into the other side. And we're going to connect these together and bring this to here. This is so that when I pull the hair over, I've got a very, very slight layer to help me distribute the hair off the face. Okay, so we're just continuing now, working up the sides here. So our objective with our sections are quite simple. They are to build a graduated shape. Okay, that's really, really simple. But how we're doing it is we're essentially taking away the majority of what we've just cut. So we've only got 2 guidelines, the previous section and the new cutting section. We bring the elevation down so that we're building length on top of length on top of length, which is giving us graduation, because that is what graduation is. It builds weight and builds length. I'm just going to cross-check that, make sure we're on the right path. Great. So keep cross-checking. It's a big help, because if you are going slightly off, if you are elevating too low, if you're not used to the haircut, it's a great way of you auditing and just checking your progress within the haircut. This means that if you are creating a slight issue with your cut, you can go over it really, really early on. So now we're going to come to the back again. So, same thing again. Coming down to the previous. So my fingers are further away than my knuckles. That means it's getting shorter towards the nape. This is again helping us to distribute that really nice soft wedge shape. As I come through here, there's suddenly an extra guideline for me, which is great, the other side. So you're able to work in, so you know that you are connecting in this way, which is building this geometrically balanced shape around the curve of the head or the occipital bone. You can see this a lot in gents' haircuts too sometimes, where if a gent has slightly longer hair, they will build it around the head shape opposed to just flattening it, which when I say flattening it, I mean cutting it the same length vertical from the sides to the back. Okay. Body position, ideally you want to be staying square to the section, okay? Again, all our sections are going to follow the same pattern, really simple, simple but not easy. The purpose of this haircut is, for me, it is really for anyone who's trying to develop themselves as a hair cutter. I feel the lessons in the shape about how to manage all your mechanics, your body position, how to manage your knowledge of your client's hair growth patterns, how to manage every aspect of how you cut hair, you manage when you're doing this. And I think that's a great training exercise. And I find that sometimes when I'm teaching people, I always make them do something very, very fundamental or very classic, because it has so much education within that particular shape. It's not a subjective shape, you see. All the systems in it are all very sort of mechanical. We can explain them and share them easier. Then I think it's a very difficult thing if, you know, someone says, can you teach me to be creative? I mean, I don't know how you do that. I think what I aim to do as an educator is to help someone to understand the sort of essentialism of hair cutting. And in my opinion, once you get that fundamental mastery within your cutting, you develop a confidence that will help you to become more innovative with your approach to your hair cutting, salon floor or otherwise. So to train that, you know, to train someone to be really edgy or artistic or whatever, I don't see how you can. But this again is my opinion. So again, as I come over to here, you can really check now to see if we're level, and thank goodness we are. So both my sides are meeting, so we're crossing into each other. Okay. Again, I'm removing hair. This means I'm removing, if you like, the previous section. So I can identify a lot more clearer where my guideline actually is. If I'm taking too much hair, I suppose I'm giving myself a multiple amount of areas my guideline could present itself. And again, although we said look for the strength in your guide, it just is a lot, it actually makes point for the time, because you can work faster if you know where your guide is quicker. So just a simple thing like just removing the previous section, it can make you a little bit faster on the salon floor as well. So we're coming up to the point now where we're just about finishing the underneath of the haircut, which again means we're going to do the cross-checking, which I've been doing non-stop in this haircut because it's that respect for the shape. You know, it's a real classic one, so I want to make sure that I'm doing it justice, and that's looking good. I'm taking my sections vertical. It's working the opposite to what I've taken my sections. Again, you find if you want to just dust the ends, that's fine. But if you're taking off large amounts, I advise that you go and revisit your actual technique. Okay. So we're getting our shape so far. Lovely. So when I come to the top, I'm going to work with the front shape first. Okay, so that's the first. That's what we're going to get up to. Is I'm going to take down the first part of the section I did, which was, of course, this side. I don't know why I always work with the part of the hair that has the less hair in. I don't know why I always do that first, but I always seem to. There's no technical reason for that. It just seems to be a preference. Okay. So I'm taking my sections at a very slight diagonal back, do you know? Because that's what we were saying before. We're lifting it slightly forward onto the front to give it that lovely curve. Again, lifting the section to ensure vertically we've not got too much weight. So you see I'm working with exactly the same methods of what I've just done. I'm taking away the previous. I love classic shapes anyway, but I think this particular one, I love the fact that it really works to the head shape. You know, like the width in our head isn't built horizontal. You go from your parietal ridge into the occipital bone, and that isn't a horseshoe section. That's not horizontal. You know, so the objective there, when people just take a horizontal section, is you're building the weight then to, you know, vertical line. Whereas when you take the sections like this and the curved, we're building it to how the width is formed in the head shape. And I just think that grows out so well. So, we're now going to work on the other side. You can start to see that shape really coming through. It is one of my favourite shapes, definitely. Again, I'm just going to remist it slightly. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't remist it. It's just my preference. I think an equal level of moisture will just help me to be more consistent within my haircut. If I cut one part of the hair with a certain level of moisture and then cut the other part with a different level, it's probably going to have an effect on my consistency. So again, I'm going to start here. Lifting my section very, very slightly, giving me this lovely round curve. So this is coming round in the same way we've done the other side, and it's connecting into the back. So we're going to keep maintaining these sections. If you see, they're slightly on a diagonal, okay? This is again because we're bringing the sections down, over directing to the front. So these sections help you with that. So your mapping process is almost like you deciding on the haircut before you've done it. That's the way I look at it. So when I map the hair, I sort of take into consideration all the whys and the hows, ensuring that I know where I'm going to end up. Saying that, I don't even know which side to stand on. There we go, let's move it round. So again, lifting it will do what? What do we think lifting it's going to do? It's going to create a softer line. So if you lift it slightly, you're going to be reducing the weight in that line. Again, I think one of the great people watching this, Fiona, I think she shared a link for you to go and see what the Firefly is if you don't know what it is. Again, I build a lot of my own personal training of shapes that have already been done. So like triangular graduations, fireflies, round grads, all those types of things, because they're non-subjective. So you essentially know if it's right or wrong. It's not open to like your interpretation of it on as much as you might think. So it is a great training exercise for you to approach something like this, or a graduated barb, or anything like that. When I demonstrate a lot on the in my training days, I tend to always choose a more classic haircut. And one of the reasons for that is that everybody knows how it's meant to look. So you know, if you are doing something where you go, oh, I'm going to show you something really crazy that you haven't seen before, I think that's great and that's wonderful. But, you know, how do people judge that, I suppose? So I was always wanted to display a haircut that was quite technically proficient and enabled the people watching to take something away from it other than being motivated. Because I think motivation's fine, but it's so short-lived. You know, being motivated is one thing, but to actually get given something that you can use again and again and again, that's more powerful. Right, so it's got one section on this side that I've obviously missed, and then what we're going to do is we're going to essentially start the back. As you said, just reload. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to take out the clips. Again, I'm going to remist the hair. Okay. So again, I'm going to be taking sections from the front, so I'm just going to pull some of the hair away and identify a section that is corresponding with that. Don't take a section from too high, because then your guideline essentially is from a different part of the head than what we're cutting. I'm also switching now into the wide part of my comb. Why do you think that is? Okay, think about it. It's the tension. I'm going to be using less tension where the hair growth pattern is a little bit stronger. So the hair growth pattern around the crown, or even the top of the head, there's less weight on it, so the hair seems to expand more. I always feel it's much safer just to switch into the wide part of my comb. The comb I'm using, the orange one that I dropped, is a Sessibon. This is a Sessibon as well. They're just different colours. The orange ones you get from Mitsutani. So I'm very fortunate that my friends at Mitsutani UK, they gave me a comb. So Okay, so again, as we cross over, always remember you're going to get another guideline. So use that as a point of knowing where your elevation goes, because if you're elevating too low, it'll tell you. If you're elevating too high, it's going to tell you. I'm going to keep taking these on slight diagonal backs, working up the head. Now, if there was a really difficult crown here, part of me would think I'd probably leave it until it was dry and quite gently cut or, you know, blend that into the section. But obviously I'm quite fortunate using a mannequin. I don't have to worry about hair growth patterns and things. Again, the mannequin is from Exalto Professional, and the colour, it's because I use the Moroccan oil purple shampoo to tone it. Lifting the section. Beautiful. Again, you've got to lift with this. And again, I'm using both sides of my guide. This is both sides of around the curve of the head. So that's why we cross over, because it enables us to ensure we're not building a corner as we work across the round. Obviously, if we're working around the head, as the head shape starts to move away, you're going to build length. So by crossing over, it sort of removes any of that build-up. Okay. Taking the section. Okay, got a nice amount of people watching it. The toner, Judy, was, it wasn't a colour, it was just a shampoo. It was the Moroccan oil purple shampoo. The mannequin head was actually quite warm, to be honest with you, and I shampooed it this morning, left the toner on for, I don't know, maybe like a good 20 minutes. Like, I think I forgot about it, to be honest. So you see my elevation here. If you're not sure what to do, right, if you're thinking, where do I go? Either take less of a section so you can see a guide more clearly, or look for the strength in your guide, which means when you're seeing multiple guidelines, wait until the crosshairs go into focus, as I call it. Wait until your guide becomes strong. If you're still not sure, cross-check your work and maybe put a slight guide in for yourself. Similar to when we use a profile section on short hair to give ourselves a guide. Thanks everyone for tuning in this evening. Again, occasionally I like to turn the comments off. The main reason is that I can see the screen. I think it's difficult when you can't see the screen. It's a lot of distraction. So yeah, make sure I can see what I'm doing. Hope everybody's staying safe. Crazy times. But again, the whole point of me doing this haircut for you was to sort of show you, if you like, what I love doing as a hair cutter, and that is classic cutting. I'm not an innovative guy. I'm not somebody creative, and you know, like if you look at Gianni Scamacci, Tom Connell, Jean-Baptiste Mazzella, you know, these people do cuts that I've never seen before, but that just isn't really me. I love the pragmatics of hair cutting and the mechanics of it, and I'm just doing my best to keep learning. All right, so we're getting on to the final steps, okay? So what I'm going to do is just switch over side, just so I'm not in the way. Again, remember, I'm using the wide part of my comb due to the fact that I always feel the hair growth patterns are less secure on top due to the fact that there's no weight on them. So even if there's no crown, I always feel the hair expands more on here. So if I was doing a one length bob, I'd do the same. I'd always cut the final couple of sections with the wide part of my comb. I just feel that slight reduction in tension makes a huge difference. Okay. So, we've pretty much got there now. I'm just going to turn the comments off so I can't see what I'm doing. He says, oh God, how'd you let go? So again, we've got our shape in. I'm just going to go through and do a little bit of cross-checking, then I'm going to start to blow dry. Blow drying today, I'm not applying any product at all. I've already applied a leave-in conditioner and heat protection. It's called Primer, and it's from a company called Seiko, and it's one of my favourite products to use. So again, I'm just going through and cross-checking my work, making sure that I'm really, really on it. So obviously I'm working fairly fast here. So again, I've got a little bit there. So instead of just taking it off with a cross-check, I would go back through the section I took and I'll remove it. Yeah, see? I wouldn't do it when the hair was, I wouldn't be doing that at all when the hair was in that state and vertically. Okay, what we're going to do now is do some wrap drying. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to that. When I wrap dry, I tend to work with a simple vest brush. Today I'm using a 7-row, not a 9-row, just because the hair's slightly shorter. I'm going to be essentially always putting the hair into position to cool. How I want it to sit at the end is how I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to be wrapping the hair flat to the head to stretch out any bend in the hair or the roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this part of the live and I'm going to come back to you in about 10 or 15 minutes with a finished blow-dried Firefly ready for you to have a look at the refining process. So come back in 10 minutes.